this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
I need to be healthy every day to survive it and go through the next chemo round and the next chemo round. So it's important that work was part of that, to keep my mind busy for 8-9 hours. And then I had to go back and face the reality. I had a goal, and the goal is to survive.
Research shows there is a significant connection between the ability to continue to work and cancer recovery. We can make work a better place for healing.
Learn more and sign the pledge at workingwithcancerpledge.com.
Body Bags with Joseph Scott Morgan. You know, one of the things that will absolutely send me into a tailspin, and I'm sure many of you guys can identify with this, is if I cannot find my wallet and if I can't find my phone. I hate to admit that, but that's just the nature of the world that we're living in. And, you know, many times, God bless her, Kimmy will grab my wallet for me. And, you know, when we're leaving, we're heading out the door. And of course, I'm spinning around the house, almost out of my mind, trying to find it. And of course, she has it. But I want to talk to you about a case today that actually involves a wallet that was found floating in the water. Oh, and also a phone that was owned by a young man that was in the hands of someone else. By the way, did I mention the young man was found dead, floating in the water in Barcelona, Spain? I'm Joseph Scott Morgan, and this is Body Bags. As all of our friends know, Dave, I am a college professor, and unfortunately, one of the things I have to do on a regular basis when I walk into a lecture is this. This is how I open up my lecture. It's unavoidable. I do it almost every day. I walk in and I say, "Okay, everybody, put your phones up." That's how I start almost every one of my lectures. I need it on a loop. I'm just going to wear like a tape recording around my neck, you know, with a speaker that just kind of broadcasts it out. That way I won't have to waste oxygen in saying it, because these things are so addictive. They go with us everywhere we go. And the generation that exists now, you know, is heavily dependent. However, I will say this, I am chief among sinners as well. I carry this thing with me all over the place because people, you know, I think that it's critical that I get the last bit of information I can get all the time and consume it and stuff it in my gourd. Life used to be so much simpler before technology, Dave. And, you know, I don't know. I'm not trying to make some kind of grand social statement here. It's just a source of irritation for me, as you can imagine.
You know, when our world in broadcasting, when pagers came along in the mid to late 80s when they were being used, you had two. You had the ones that actually had a voice on them where you could, you know, somebody could message you by voice, or then you had the ones that were cool where it would just pop up and give you a number to call.
Yeah.
I had a boss who, he was the most profane man. And it was like, yeah. And he would text, he would scream these things into your pager. It didn't matter. You could be in church, you know, and the most vulgar, obscene would come bouncing out of this thing. And so I finally started taking my battery out and putting it around backwards, putting it in. And when they would, why didn't you get the page? Why didn't you answer it? Oh, my page is right here. Oh, it's not working. Something's wrong. And I take it out and they'd look at it and go, well, try a new battery, put a new battery in. Okay, there it is. When it happened again, well, there's something wrong with this pager. It's eating batteries, you know? Anyway, yeah, I hated those things, but
I did too. Yeah.
They were the precursor of the phone, you know?
And these things are a millstone around our necks.
They are, but they're entertainment, Joe. They're not just this, but we're talking about Jimmy Gracey, a student at the University of Alabama, a 20-year-old guy who is the chaplain for his fraternity. He is looked upon as a mentor to the younger students and an all-around good guy. His grades are phenomenal. His friendships are phenomenal. His parents are phenomenal. This is a good young man. And for his spring break, he is on his way to Barcelona, Spain, to spend it with some friends who are studying overseas for a semester. That's how Jimmy Gracey ends up in Barcelona. And yes, I did say Barcelona because that's how you say it.
Yep,
it's not
there you
Barth.
go.
It's Barth.
There you go.
But anyway,
Barcelona. Yep.
And so I sound like Cindy Brady saying it that way. But did you
proper
see
Spanish pronunciation?
Yeah,
Even though it's in Catalonia, you have to make that.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Got to be correct. But anyway, you look at it. What we have is the story of a 20-year, when we started covering it, 20-year-old student from the University of Alabama missing in Spain. That was how we began the report. And the report was he was last seen at a bar with his friends at Chaco, which is a top 10 night spot around the world. Club Chaco, known around the world for night spot stuff. I didn't know they had a listing, but they do, and it's on there. So they say. He is seen reportedly talking to an American girl inside Chaco. His friends decide to go on back to the Airbnb they're renting for the week while they're there, but Jimmy stays behind without them. Now, there is a little bit of miscommunication here. He either stayed behind intentionally because he was talking to the girl, or he got separated from his friends. But either way, his friends went back to the Airbnb. Jimmy was still at the club. Now, in many cases that we cover in Europe, there are CCTV, there's cameras everywhere.
Yes.
And they're like flock cameras we have here, but instead of for license plates, they're for people, you know?
Yeah, they're everywhere.
But in this particular place, there are not so many in this one particular spot in Europe, apparently. But we do have a picture of Jimmy at 3 o'clock in the morning talking to somebody outside Chaco. I leave it there because he went missing after that, Joe. And when we first started covering the case, it was his dad is on the way. His mom's on the way. They're headed to Barcelona. They're going to find their son who is missing. Katie Britt, United States Senator from Alabama. She's involved. We've got the consulate over there. We've got everybody involved in the case of a 20-year-old college student who went missing St. Patrick's Day. Early morning of St. Patrick's Day. So when we started covering it, we knew there's going to be updates. But the updates that we got were weird, shocking, not normal. You mentioned it right off the top. Cell phone, wallet.
Yeah.
Now, Joe, the first report we got was not that his wallet was found. The first report we got is that somebody had his cell phone. We don't know where Jimmy is, but we know where his cell phone is because it's right over here. The police have it because they arrested this guy. Not for any crime with Jimmy, but he's got Jimmy's phone. Now, Joe, I don't know if it's a communication issue, a language barrier, but you have a guy missing. You have a guy with his phone. Immediately, I'm putting two and two together because the phone doesn't just jump out of one guy's hand into another guy's hand without something happening in between. And this other guy who now has Jimmy's phone did something that caused him to be arrested by police.
Yeah.
So what does that tell you?
It tells me that I guess we could count it up to miscommunication or time delay or whatever. I caught a lot of flack over this case. From the moment it kicked off, I got called by multiple networks wanting me to appear, and I obliged them. I obliged them by appearing, and I'm glad to do it because, well, I'm a dad. I'm a college professor. This is the age group that I deal with on a regular basis. I want him found. All right. And it was really amazing the level of vitriol that I received. And look, I mean, we get it every time we do something. You'll never please everybody. Yeah. If that's going to be your standard, you're going to have a problem. But here's where it kind of splits. The vitriol I was receiving was over on the continent. Okay. And I was hearing things like he doesn't even know where, how do you say it? Barcelona? That's the way you're pronouncing it with the Spanish pronunciation. Doesn't even know where it is. Bet he's never even left Alabama. Well, no, I've been to a lot of places. And they view us.
What is the song? I've never been to Spain.
I've never been to Spain. There you go.
Three Dog Night.
Yeah, you're right. Three Dog Night first. Notes. That's right. I do know this. I can put two and two together and try to come up with some kind of understandable timeline. You know, they went so far as let's say, usual suspects here. First off, that I was a racist because I implied that, that they were not up to snuff, as it were. First off, I didn't know Spain was a race. Need to go back to geography class. And secondly, that I viewed them as some kind of backwater or something that was incapable of doing good police work or forensics work. Well, what you're saying doesn't make any sense. All right. That's where the communication problem arises in a case like this. And plus I have a real awareness, acutely aware of what happens to many of our citizens when they go overseas. I might remind you that I was standing outside the courthouse, the federal courthouse, mind you, in Birmingham, Alabama, when Vandersloot was brought for his first appearance in regards to Natalie Holloway. So, yeah, I kind of have my finger on the pulse of things relative to how our citizens are treated many times when you go overseas. So when you're saying things like, somebody else had his phone, but there's no connection to this young man being found floating dead in the water, I'm going to have questions. I'm sorry. You're going to have to get used to it. That's the reality of it. So, the way this thing was lining up just from Jump Street, Dave, did not make sense to me. One iota of sense. And I knew from the beginning that his parents were fully on board, vested. They wanted answers. I don't know, many of us can, but I think about my own son. I think about other families where I've heard these horrible stories. Imagine being thousands of miles away from your child and they're missing, and you want answers. And who's gonna advocate for you when you get over there? And from the beginning, I was hoping that the FBI was going to step in, that we were going to have, because, no matter where you go in the world, if we have an embassy, there is going to be some kind of liaison that can connect you with the FBI. And I was really hoping that they were going to be there on ground to advocate for the family. Sounds like they may have been there. Not really sure at this point in time. But, we're just supposed to take it on faith that whatever they decide to do, that is the Spanish authorities, that it is going to be absolutely sterling. Well, didn't come down with the last drop of rain. You're going to have to prove it to me. Prove it to me in what you do, not in what you say.
I need to be healthy every day to survive it and go through the next chemo round and the next chemo round. So it's important that work was part of that, to keep my mind busy for 8-9 hours. And then I had to go back and face the reality. I had a goal, and the goal is to survive.
Research shows there is a significant connection between the ability to continue to work and cancer recovery. We can make work a better place for healing.
Learn more and sign the pledge at workingwithcancerpledge.com.
Brother Dave, in Jimmy Gracey's case, I think my biggest concern was once he was in fact found. From a forensic standpoint, I was hoping that a very thorough job was going to be done in his postmortem examination. Because, Dave, there are so many intricacies here involved in a case like this, where you have what we at least understand is a perfectly healthy young man.
Right.
Healthy young men don't just simply, fall over dead. That the truth was going to be arrived at. That's all I'm asking for here. I just want scientific truth. And unfortunately, it's at this point in time, as we are laying the sound down, this one caveat, we don't have all of the data. And there have been multiple, outlets from international and as well as in our country, in the United States, that have said that there may be more to this. Well, I want to hear what the officials in Spain have to say about this specifically. And I don't want it to be cluttered. I don't want it to be confusing. I want the data laid out so that we can understand it. And I know that their ways might not be our ways, but there is a scientific way of doing things, and that should be the bellwether for everything else.
There's a right way and a wrong way for everything. And again, when you have a missing 20-year-old and somebody is arrested in possession of missing 20-year-old's phone, and you are able to say, yeah, but he had nothing to do with it. To do with what? We don't even know what happened. The guy's missing. How can you eliminate him as a possible suspect when you don't even know where the guy is? And let's go. I'm going to run down the timeline very quickly because I got a lot of questions about the time here. Yeah. Based on what, and this is based on us covering this story as it was going on. Again, remember, Joe and I were both covering this case when Jimmy Gracey was missing. And we were trying to bring attention to help, other Americans in the area or people familiar with the work that we do beyond just body bags, both Nancy Grace and Crime Stories and all the other shows you were on, some overseas, just drawing attention to this because we got a 20-year-old kid missing. Let's find him. So we've got Jimmy Gracey outside of Chaco at 3:00 in the morning. He is seen on camera. Okay. Cameras capture him walking toward the waterfront along the marina. He appears to be alone, unaccompanied at that time. Authorities say video indicates he approached the edge near the rocks and water, and moments later, investigators believe that Jimmy Gracey fell into the Mediterranean Sea. So backing it up, friends realized he never returned back to the Airbnb. Okay? Yep. We're talking the morning of March 17th. Last seen at 3 a.m. outside the bar. All of his friends are back at the Airbnb. They wake up in the morning. Jimmy's not here. The search begins immediately. Personal items are recovered from Jimmy. His wallet is found floating in the water. I believe we were recording a show when that happened, Joe. Yeah, we were. Can I interject something here real quick about wallets and bodies? Mm-hmm. I've had a lot of waterborne bodies over the years where people are fully clothed. To the best of my recollection, I don't ever recall a wallet coming out of, and for young men, and old dudes like me and you, we carry our wallet, in our pocket, right? Now, it might be the front pocket, back pocket. Oh, by the way, I'll insert this here. I always carry my wallet in my front pocket. You know why? Because I've been going to Europe and there's pickpockets everywhere. So that's something I learned early on. So I have a big chain attached to mine that goes down my belt buckle because I'm a redneck. There you go.
Chrome be slapping. Yeah. Most of the time with like items, particularly like wallets, you'd be surprised at how adherent they will come in pockets and kind of anchored in there when clothing gets wet. Now, I suppose that it could float out, but I would lean more toward the idea of a wallet being found with a body. And here's something that has not been spoken to. I don't know what the contents were of his wallet. Okay. And what I mean by that was there missing money? How much money did he have? Any kind of ID, credit cards, were they there? Yes. I'd want to know that and try to assess that. all we get is wallet found, and it's his. So obviously I have some way to tie it back to him, but it's floating in the water. And then you couple that also with the phone issue, Dave. And that, of course, as an investigator, piques my interest. If
your phone's not in your hand, it's in your pocket if you're a guy. You know, we don't traditionally carry purses. And if okay, let's just move back to this timeline or I'm going to get lost. And I apologize because this really grinds my gears. When I heard that the wallet was found in the water, the only way a wallet normally ends in the water where it's not on a body is when the thief who took it is rifling through it and he throws it in the water to get rid of it. You got to get rid of the evidence. You don't want to get caught with the evidence. And of course, the idiot with Jimmy's cell phone very well could have bought it from somebody on the street that he knows is a criminal who sold him the phone. You know, I mean, there are a lot of ways, but that phone is attached. It is Jimmy Gracey's phone. So whoever has it has a direct link to Jimmy, even if it's through two other people. There's a direct link. You don't just find it on the street. Not like this. No. Anyway, back to the timeline. So we find the wallet in the water. Police review surveillance footage and focus on search efforts along the shoreline and harbor. Now, remember how very specific they were about seeing Jimmy on video, on camera, outside of Shaco, the nightclub, talking to somebody. And then they're very specific about watching him walk toward the water alone. Everything after this it is reported. Police said, we're not being told exactly what's on it. We're giving a paraphrase of what police have said they see. I'm not saying anything's wrong with that. I'm just saying there's a different way of speakage here, you know? March 17th, police are reviewing footage and they say, and they focus their efforts on the shoreline. Now, we're now at March 19th. Now, when did Jimmy go missing? After 3 a.m., March 17th in the morning. We're now have gone all the way through the 17th, all the way through the 18th, the entire day and night. So we're now dealing with the day of March 19th, Joseph Scott Morgan. And Jimmy Gracey's body is recovered from the water near the Port Olympic area. The location is consistent with where he was last seen on video. So why is that not the first place they looked, and why didn't they find him there on March 17th?
I don't know, because, you know, one of the things that jumped to mind for me, if you look at the way this place is kind of set up, it looks like a protected harbor. You can see the boats, you know, the rescue boats. Where they're kind of tooling around and they look like, and they've got divers on them and all this sort of thing. And there's a marina there. So it's kind of a harbored area. It's got kind of a spit of land that goes out, you know, and it looks like that this is where, you know, you get out into open waters from there. And I was thinking, well, did tidal flow have anything to do with this? The rise in the tide moving out, you know, trying to understand those tables, you know, how that works. And then the specter always rises for me when you have a body, even in an entrapped area like that. Is there anything that the body could get hung up on, essentially? You know, we have that happen in the South a lot. A lot of our waterways, we've got brush that's beneath the water. And I'm not saying it probably doesn't exist in this location. It looks like it's rather heavily trafficked. So what happened to his remains in the interim? Why were they not spotted any sooner? And, you know, this is, I hate to say this, but many times what will happen with the dead is that they will initially kind of drown and sink. Okay. And then as they change, post-mortem, they'll begin to float to the top. We really haven't had that amount of time for that sort of thing to occur. All right. Because this is, you talked about the time frame, and it's kind of a tighter window. So you wouldn't have this kind of gaseous buildup, you know, and that sort of thing that occurred. I've been,
how long would it take though? How long would that take, Joe?
Well, a lot of it's going to, and we're in a Mediterranean environment here. So it's probably considerably warmer there than it is. We're in an area around the ocean. But still, to this point in time, it's not summertime conditions though at this point. All right, which would speed this up quite a bit. It would have taken even a longer period of time at this. And a lot of this is dependent upon the water temperature, which, by the way, we do not know at this point in time. But, those are some of the things that I was kind of considering. Is this something, if we see him adjacent, and we don't know how long it took the cops to request the CCTV imagery, which is, it's not a big ask, and this is something, as you well stated, Dave, Europe and most European countries are some of the most visualized areas in any location in the world other than maybe China. All right. You go to Amsterdam, certainly London. Oh my Lord. They're snapping you all the time over there. So I can't imagine that, you got this kid that's missing. I would think that the authorities would run to their big room that has all of their cameras in it and maybe has a hard drive in there of some kind. Certainly it's stored on a cloud, and they could pull that down and begin to review it. I think that's, you think about that relative to him going off of and it sounds like riprap, which is like a huge collection of rocks that you have where they build this kind of artificial wall. Mm-hmm. Well, are you saying that he got onto the riprap, which is very uneven? Is there a walkway that walks out onto the riprap where the riprap is on either side and you're on a paved area and you fell off of the walkway? Or were you trying to walk on this uneven surface where there witnessed is this? Did you actually see him come off of the riprap and fall into the water? Because all we're hearing right now is that he's found, we think, and these injuries that he has on his body appear to be consistent with striking of rocks at this point in time.
So the temperature in the Mediterranean, I looked it up, about 57 degrees right there at the shore. Now, what that means is, you can get in, but it's cold. And
it's very cold.
Going to be in it very long, you're going to need a wetsuit.
Yes.
The temperature at the time that Jimmy Gracey left the bar, probably between 50 and 55 degrees, 63 for the high. The next day. So 3 o'clock in the morning, 50, 55, somewhere in there. So it's chilly. It's not cold. It's just chilly, fairly comfortable, to be honest with you. And you're out
that right there is why you're the best producer in the business, Dave.
But you're out there walking around. You've been out at a bar. You've been talking to an American girl, and your friends have all gone back to their place, and you've decided to go down for a stroll along the water by yourself, apparently. Somehow you've made this decision without your phone because somebody else has that. And according to what they're telling us to believe, that Jimmy Gracey's body was found in the Mediterranean near where his wallet was found. But his wallet was found 2 days before his body was found, pretty much. So we got a little problem here. Now, we're given to believe his injuries consistent with an accidental fall onto the rocks. Authorities have already concluded, Joe, there is no evidence of homicide.
Yeah.
When you got a missing person, missing 20-year-old, who comes up dead without his phone in the possession of another person, sorry, guys, in international, this is not a home, this is not where he lives. He does not live there. He has a family that he cares about and people he has to talk to, people he has to be accountable to. He's 20 years old. That phone is not going to be taken lightly.
No, it's not. It is literally his lifeline back to the States. And also all of those people that are there, adjacent to him, his friends that are now back at the Airbnb, how are you going to get in contact with them? And, that's one of the big troubling things here. The fact that he is absent this device that literally tethers him back to all of those who know him and are concerned for his well-being. Now, I can tell you this, that harbor where he was found, it ain't Tuscaloosa, Alabama. It's something completely different. And who or what happened to him when he was inside that bar and after he walked out the door.
I need to be healthy every day to survive it and go through the next chemo round and the next chemo round. So it's important that work was part of that, to keep my mind busy for 8-9 hours. And then I had to go back and face the reality. I had a goal, and the goal is to survive.
Research shows there is a significant connection between the ability to continue to work and cancer recovery. We can make work a better place for healing.
Learn more and sign the pledge at workingwithcancerpledge.com.
Okay, so Brother Dave, they're saying that he drowned. Okay. Now, there's a very specific way we make that diagnosis in forensic pathology. All right. Obviously, the first thing we're going to look at are the lungs. Okay. Mm-hmm. Take a look at the lungs, and there's multiple levels to this, to the assessment. First off, you weigh the lungs, and we have very specific weights that go along with lungs, particularly for someone of his age. Okay. These weights are bracketed. All right. Mm-hmm. It's been done for a long time. We kind of know what we're doing. So you can get a sense and say, okay, these lungs are very heavy. This might be indicative of a drowning. Well, what you do at this point in time is, through the further examination, you're going to appreciate, because you will actually see kind of seepage of water that exudes from the interior of the lung. Another thing that you're going to look for is kind of any kind of frothy presentation within the bronchial tree and also in the trachea, in the airway. One of the things that's fascinating, Dave, about drowning assessments is that when you take a drowned person and bring them up on shore, you'll see what we've talked about before, the frothy edematous cone that actually rises from them while you're standing there looking at them. It's one of the more bizarre things that you'll actually see. And then I think what I'm very fascinated in are this quote unquote consistent with having these injuries, consistent with having struck rocks. So, and they're referring, I've heard these referred to as bruises, in other words, contusions. Well, Dave, with contusions / bruises, we all know that you have to be alive, right, in order to hemorrhage. Okay. So what they're saying is that there are bruises on his body that are in fact consistent with him bumping up against rocks in the water. And there are postmortem injuries that bodies can sustain, but they don't have injuries. They'll just look like little, the body gets dinged up, but you're not going to have any kind of hemorrhage in the surrounding tissue at all. So it's not going to bruise. So what they're saying
really different,
Yeah, completely. So did he fall in the water and then subsequently drown? Well, I don't know. I've fallen down rocks before. I've fallen into the water. You know me, I'm out on my boat, quite a bit.
Yeah.
If that happens with me, and it hurts, I can still essentially recover from it. What is it about him that he was unable to recover from striking rocks, falling into the water, and subsequently drowning? Because it sounds to me that's the sequencing that they're giving us here. So you strike rocks, you drown, and we find you later. All right. For me, I want to know how a healthy 20-year-old cannot get out of the water and get back up onto the riprap that's there. Mm-hmm. These stones that are alongside the waterway that's holding back, the tide, just adjacent to the back of this restaurant. I want to try to understand that. But still to date, and here's where I have a real problem, is they have made all of these assertions, Dave, without toxicology. Now, maybe toxicology came in as of today. However, they were making these assertions days ago.
Right.
So you're telling me that you did an examination of drawn samples, blood, urine, vitreous, bile, whatever else that gastric content, you did all of that and you were able to turn it around this quickly and not mention what was contained therein.
Toxicology has not been done.
Yeah, and so I don't see how you can arrive at that conclusion. There's a big conclusion I can arrive at, and I'll go ahead and plainly say it here on my show. The tourist dollar is really valued in Barcelona, all right? It's highly valued. And, of course, we don't want to do anything that would dissuade people from coming and spending their tourist dollars. So, if word gets out that, I don't know, he was drunk in a bar or maybe there was some substance, how can you know that at this point in time? How do you know that the samples that you took reveal not just maybe alcohol? Because he's not of drinking age in America. I know that he's of drinking age over there. Right. But how do you know that there is not some kind of agent in his system that may have been slipped? Because, going back to my earlier supposition about the phone, because, his phone is wound up in somebody else's hand. Oh, and by the way, the police felt strongly enough about it to arrest the person that had Jimmy's phone. How does all this marry up, Dave? I don't understand. Please help me understand this, man.
If I could help you understand it, Joe, if I could break this down differently, we wouldn't be doing this episode. Yeah. Because the real problem is the guy that was arrested with Jimmy's phone was not arrested because he had Jimmy's phone. He was arrested on other charges, and he happened to have Jimmy's phone. Before police knew, Jimmy Gracey was missing. So there's a lot going on. That's why that phone is very, very important to this entire case, because they being investigators said, yes, this guy we arrested had Jimmy Gracey's phone in his possession, but he's not involved in whatever happened to Jimmy Gracey. But since you don't even know what happened to Jimmy Gracey when you're saying that, it holds no water, just like your story of drowning. But here we go back to this again, Joe. The outcropping. Why is Jimmy Gracey going to leave a bar? He's been with his friends all evening until said point when he goes outside at 3:00 in the morning where he's seen on video, and he's not with his friends. They've gone home. He was last seen talking to an American girl inside the bar, inside Shaco. Was he given something else inside the bar that made him not want to leave right then? His friends leave. Once his friends are gone, boom, we got him. Jimmy is seen outside talking to somebody. But then Jimmy is later seen alone. That's what police say. He is seen walking alone towards the water. Now, Joe, this outcropping, I've been looking at this. Slippery rocks, uneven walking areas at night, rocky edges without full barriers in place. Now, a 20-year-old young man walking by himself for whatever reason. And investigators believe it was disorientation, darkness, or alcohol may have contributed. Now, remember, toxicology details have not been publicly released and have not been completed as far as we know yet. But they're making an assumption that he was drunk and fell down and hit his head and fell in the water and drowned. So if he hit his head and fell in the water and drowned, Joe, knocked himself out and drowned, that's a big leap. That's a big leap, because that's the only thing you can really come up with. He had to have been at least in bad enough shape before he fell in the water.
Thank you. Yep. You're right. Because I this kind of slipped my mind a second ago. I was thinking about these injuries that he has. Mm-hmm. Well, it's one thing to have an injury on your shoulder, right, or on the back of your hand or your elbow, or maybe it even looks like maybe you've got a big contusion on your rib cage. Mm-hmm. I want to know about the head. I want to know what was going on in this child's head, and not in it in the sense of, what was he thinking? I want to know what's going on internally. I want to know if there's any kind of external manifestation of trauma. I want to know if the external manifestation of trauma translates through the external table of the skull and into the surface of his brain. I want to try to understand that. And I also want to try to understand that coupled with the toxicology report, which, of course, we don't have at this point. But I promise you this, my friends. Brother Dave and I are going to be watching this case. And when we feel like that it is time, we will come back, good, bad, or indifferent, and we will let you know what the results are. I hope that you will keep your eye on the case as well. I'm Joseph Scott Morgan, and this is body bags.
I need to be healthy every day to survive it and go through the next chemo round and the next chemo round. So it's important that work was part of that, to keep my mind busy for 8-9 hours. And then I had to go back and face the reality. I had a goal, and the goal was to survive.
Research shows there is a significant connection between the ability to continue to work and cancer recovery. We can make work a better place for healing.
Learn more and sign the pledge at workingwithcancerpledge.com.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.